On a hot day in Texas, 35-year-old Jacob Harris, a black auto mechanic, stops to help a stranger with a flat tire. But instead of being thanked, he is accused of theft, and one phone call turns his life upside down. In his struggle for justice, he uncovers the dark secrets of a small town where racism and power are closely intertwined. Can Jacob clear his name when everyone is against him? The Texas sun beat down mercilessly on the cracked asphalt of Highway 71, a ribbon of road stretching endlessly through the outskirts of Austin. It was late July 2025, and the heat shimmered in waves, turning the horizon into a hazy mirage. Jacob Harris, a 35-year-old black mechanic with a steady hand and a quick smile, was driving his beat-up Ford pickup home after a long day at the garage. Sweat beaded on his brow. The truck's AC long since dead, but he didn't mind. The radio crackled with an old blues tune, and he hummed along, thinking of his pregnant wife, Layla, waiting for him with dinner. Ahead, a sleek white BMW sat crookedly on the shoulder, its hazard lights blinking lazily. A woman stood beside it, fanning herself with a designer purse, her blonde hair sticking to her flushed face. Jacob slowed down, his instincts kicking in. He'd spent his life fixing things, cars, mostly, but sometimes people too. Pulling over, he grabbed his toolbox from the passenger seat and stepped out into the furnace of the afternoon. "Need a hand?" he called, wiping his hands on his oil-stained jeans as he approached. The woman, Emily Crawford, though he didn't know her name yet, looked up, her expression a mix of relief and impatience. She was in her late 20s, dressed in a crisp sundress that screamed money, her manicured nails clutching a phone with no signal bars. "Yeah, my tire's flat," she said, her voice sharp with frustration. "I've been stuck here for an hour. Can you fix it?" Jacob nodded, crouching beside the car to inspect the damage. The rear left tire was shredded, a jagged gash from some unseen road hazard. "Got a spare in the trunk?" he asked, already rolling up his sleeves. Emily popped the trunk with a huff, and he set to work, the familiar rhythm of loosening lug nuts and jacking up the chassis calming his nerves. She hovered nearby, tapping her foot, her eyes darting to the empty road. Minutes ticked by, the sun sinking lower, casting long shadows. Jacob was tightening the last bolt on the spare when a dusty patrol car rolled up, its lights flashing. Sheriff Blake, a broad-shouldered man with a permanent scowl, stepped out, his boots crunching on the gravel. Jacob barely glanced up, focused on his task, but Emily's demeanor shifted. She straightened, her lips curling into something calculated. "Sheriff, thank God you're here," she cried, clutching her purse tighter. "This man, he tried to steal my bag while I was stranded." Jacob froze, the wrench slipping in his hand. He looked up, disbelief etched across his face. "What? That's a lie," he said, keeping his tone steady despite the heat rising in his chest. "I've been fixing your tire. You saw me." Sheriff Blake's hand rested on his holster, his eyes narrowing as he sized Jacob up. "Step away from the car, boy," he barked, his drawl thick with menace. "And where I could see you." "Boy," Jacob echoed, standing slowly, his palms raised. "I'm just helping her out. Check the tire. I didn't touch her damn purse." Emily's voice cut through, shrill and insistent. "He grabbed it when I turned my back. I was terrified." Tears welled in her eyes, a performance so convincing Jacob almost doubted himself for a split second. But he knew the truth. He'd done nothing wrong. Blake didn't hesitate. "Turn around," he ordered, pulling cuffs from his belt. "You're coming with me." "This is crazy," Jacob said, his voice rising despite his effort to stay calm. "I didn't do anything. You've got no proof." "Her word's enough," Blake snapped, yanking Jacob's arms behind his back. The cuffs clicked shut, cold metal biting into his wrists. Emily stood there, arms crossed, avoiding his gaze as the sheriff shoved him toward the patrol car. Jacob's heart pounded, his mind racing. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It felt personal, deliberate. As Blake slammed the car door, Jacob caught a glimpse of Emily slipping her phone in her purse, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. The patrol car peeled away, leaving the BMW behind, its spare tire gleaming in the fading light. Jacob stared out the window, the weight of what just happened sinking in. He didn't know it yet, but Emily Crawford wasn't just some stranded driver. She was the daughter of Judge William Crawford, a man who'd ruled Austin's underbelly for decades with an iron fist and a blind eye to justice. And Jacob? He was about to become a pawn in a game he never signed up to play. The holding cell smelled of stale sweat and rust, a concrete box buried in the back of the Austin County Sheriff's Station. Jacob Harris sat on the edge of a metal bench, his cuffed hands resting on his knees, the clink of the chains echoing in the silence. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on his face. It was hours after his arrest, past midnight now, July 26th, 2025, and the reality of his situation was sinking in like a stone. Emily Crawford's lie had landed him here, and Sheriff Blake's smug grin as he'd locked the door told Jacob this wasn't a simple mix-up. He replayed the scene on the highway over and over. The way Emily's voice cracked just right, the tears she'd summoned on cue. It was too polished, too rehearsed. And Blake? He hadn't even asked for Jacob's side. Her words enough, he'd said. Jacob clenched his fists, the cuffs biting into his wrists. He'd seen this before. Guys like him, black men with no fancy last name, caught in the crosshairs of someone else's power play. But this felt different. This felt personal. The cell door creaked open, and Blake stepped in, his boots thudding against the floor. "You're in deep, Harris," he said, tossing a file onto the bench. "Attempted theft, resisting arrest. Judge Crawford's daughter, don't mess around. You're looking at 5 years, minimum." Resisting arrest? Jacob's voice was low, incredulous. "I didn't resist. I didn't steal anything. You know that." Blake smirked, leaning against the wall. "Don't matter what I know. Matters what she says. And who her daddy is." He tapped the file with a meaty finger. "William Crawford's been on the bench 20 years. His word's law around here. You're just a grease monkey who picked the wrong car to fix." Jacob's stomach dropped. Judge Crawford. The name hit like a punch. Everyone in Austin knew it. Whispers of backroom deals, hushed-up scandals, and a courthouse where justice bent to the highest bidder. Emily wasn't just some rich girl. She was a weapon in a bigger machine. "This is a setup," Jacob said, meeting Blake's gaze. "Why me?" Blake shrugged, his eyes cold. "Wrong place, wrong time. Or maybe you just look the part." He turned to leave, pausing at the door. "Sleep tight. Bail hearings tomorrow, if you can afford it." Alone again, Jacob's mind raced. He had $200 in savings, a baby on the way, and a mortgage barely paid. Layla, God, what was she thinking right now? She'd be frantic, calling the station, pacing their tiny living room with her swollen belly. He had to get out, had to fight this, but how? Against a judge who owned the system? Meanwhile, across town, Layla Harris wasn't sleeping either. The clock in their cramped duplex ticked past 1 a.m., its rhythm a cruel mockery of her racing heart. Jacob hadn't come home, hadn't called. Then the phone rang. An officer, curt and clipped, saying he'd been arrested. Theft. Resisting. She'd hung up, stunned, her hand trembling on her stomach where their daughter kicked restlessly. It didn't make sense. Jacob was the guy who'd stopped to help a stranger, not rob one. She grabbed her coat, ignoring the ache in her back, and drove to the station. The desk sergeant barely looked up. "No visitors," he grunted. "Come back tomorrow." Pleading got her nowhere. Neither did the tears she fought back. Desperate, she called every lawyer she could think of, but the answers were the same. "Crawford? Sorry, ma'am, can't touch it." Fear clawed at her chest. They were alone in this. By morning, word had spread. Jacob's boss at the garage, Tommy, showed up at the duplex, his face grim. "Heard what happened," he said, handing Layla a coffee. "It's bullshit. Jacob's the best guy I know." She nodded, swallowing hard. "He stopped to help someone. That's it. Now they're saying he's a criminal." Tommy frowned. "Who's the woman?" "Emily Crawford," Layla said, the name bitter on her tongue. "Judge Crawford's daughter." Tommy whistled low. "That's bad news. Crawford's got half the town in his pocket. Sheriff, DA, you name it. Been that way since I was a kid. Folks say he's untouchable." "Not if I can help it," Layla snapped, her resolve hardening. She wasn't just fighting for Jacob now. She was fighting for their unborn daughter, for the life they'd built. She spent the day knocking on doors, begging for help, until exhaustion forced her back home. Slumped on the couch, she scrolled X on her phone, venting her fury in a post. My husband's locked up for helping someone. Judge Crawford's daughter lied. Where's the justice? The post went unnoticed at first, just another cry in the void. But then a notification pinged, a message from someone named Sarah Wilson. I'm a journalist. I know Crawford's dirty. Let's talk. Layla's breath caught. It wasn't much, but it was a lifeline. She typed back, hands shaking. Please. He's all I've got. Back in the cell, Jacob stared at the ceiling, plotting his next move. He didn't know about Sarah yet, didn't know Layla had found a spark of hope. All he knew was the weight of the cuffs, the sting of Emily's lie, and the gnawing certainty that this wasn't random. Someone wanted him silenced, and he'd be damned if he let them win without a fight. The air in the Austin County Sheriff's Station was thick with the hum of bureaucracy and the faint tang of despair. Jacob Harris sat in his cell, his back against the cold wall, tracing the cracks in the concrete with his eyes. It was July 27th, 2025, his second day locked up, and the weight of Emily Crawford's lie pressed harder with every passing hour. His bail hearing loomed that afternoon, but without a lawyer willing to take on Judge Crawford's machine, he knew the odds were stacked against him. He rubbed his wrists where the cuffs had left red marks, his mind churning. There had to be a way out. He closed his eyes, replaying the moment on Highway 71. The tire change, Emily's fake tears, Sheriff Blake's quick draw. Then something clicked. In the BMW's trunk, when he grabbed the spare, he'd seen a black plastic package tucked under a blanket. Small, heavy, taped tight. He hadn't thought much of it then, too focused on the job, but now it gnawed at him. Drugs? Evidence? Whatever it was, Emily had panicked when Blake showed up. Maybe that was the real reason she'd pinned him with a lie, to keep him from talking. The cell door rattled, jolting him back. A guard tossed him a stale sandwich. Eat up, the man grunted. Hearings in 2 hours. Jacob nodded, forcing a bite, his thoughts racing. He needed to get word to Layla. If that package was something illegal, it could flip this whole mess around. He scribbled a note on the sandwich wrapper with a stub of pencil he'd found under the bench. Check Emily's trunk. Black package. Tell someone. He folded it tight, praying he'd get a chance to pass it. Outside, Layla Harris was running on fumes. She'd barely slept, her body aching from 8 months of pregnancy, but her resolve burned brighter than ever. Sarah Wilson, the journalist who'd messaged her on X, had agreed to meet at a diner off 6th Street. Layla arrived early, clutching Jacob's note, passed to her by a sympathetic janitor who'd slipped it out of the station. Her hands trembled as she slid into the booth across from Sarah, a wiry woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a notepad already open. Tell me everything, Sarah said, pen poised. Layla spilled it all. Jacob's arrest, Emily's accusation, the Crawford name shutting every door. Then she slid the note across the table. He saw this in her car. He thinks it's why she lied. Sarah's eyes lit up as she read it. A package? That's gold if we can prove it. She leaned in, lowering her voice. I've been after Crawford for years. Corruption, intimidation. He's got a trail of bodies who stayed quiet. Emily's his weak link. She's reckless, entitled. This isn't her first stunt. Layla frowned. What do you mean? Sarah flipped her notepad, revealing a list of names. 2 years ago, a Latino kid, 17, got nabbed for vandalizing her car. She claimed he keyed it. Turns out she scratched it herself in a DUI crash. Crawford buried it. Last year, a waitress stole her watch. Emily planted it in her apron. Daddy's money and Blake's badge cleaned it up. Pattern's clear. She screws up, someone else pays. Layla's stomach twisted. So Jacob's just collateral? Maybe, Sarah said. Or he saw something he wasn't supposed to. That package, if it's drugs or worse, could be her mess, not his. Blake's in on it too. He's been Crawford's muscle forever. Hope flickered in Layla's chest, fragile but real. Can you get it? The car. Sarah smirked. Not legally, not yet. It's probably impounded or back at her place. But I've got sources. If it's there, I'll find it. She paused, studying Layla. You're tough, you know that? Most people give up. Jacob's my world, Layla said simply. And our baby deserves a dad who's free. Sarah nodded, pocketing the note. Then let's nail her. I'll dig. You keep that post on X alive. People need to see this. By noon, Sarah was on the move, calling contacts, a cop who owed her a favor, a tow yard worker with loose lips. She learned Emily's BMW had been towed to a lot near the courthouse, still unclaimed. A bribe and a quick distraction got her close enough to snap photos through the fence. There was the trunk, cracked open from the tow, a corner of black plastic peeking out. Her pulse raced. She couldn't grab it, too risky, but the image was a start. Back at the station, Jacob was led into the courtroom, his wrists cuffed again. The judge, not Crawford, but one of his cronies, peered down with disinterest. Attempted theft, resisting arrest, he droned. Bail set at $50,000. Jacob's heart sank. They didn't have that kind of money. He scanned the room, spotting Layla in the back, her eyes red but fierce. She mouthed, "I got help." He clung to that, even as the gavel fell. Outside, Layla met Sarah again, the photo on her phone glowing with promise. "That's it," Layla whispered. "What now?" "We go public," Sarah said. "This plus Jacob's story. It's enough to light a fire. Crawford can't bury this if the whole city's watching." As Jacob was led back to his cell, he didn't know the wheels were turning. But he felt it, a shift, a crack in the wall. Emily's lie was unraveling, and the truth was clawing its way out. The sun hung low over Austin on July 29th, 2025, casting golden streaks across the city's skyline. Inside his cell, Jacob Harris paced, the concrete floor cold under his worn sneakers. 3 days in lockup, and the walls felt tighter with every breath. His bail hearing had been a sham. $50,000 was a fortune he and Layla couldn't touch. But something was brewing outside. He could sense it in the guards' nervous glances, the murmurs filtering through the station. He clung to Layla's last words in the courtroom. "I've got help." He didn't know how, but he trusted her. Across town, Sarah Wilson's fingers flew over her laptop in a cramped coffee shop off Congress Avenue. Her article was nearly done, a Molotov cocktail of truth ready to ignite. The headline blazed, "Judge's daughter frames innocent man. What's she hiding?" She'd woven Jacob's story with a photo of the black package in Emily's trunk, plus whispers of Crawford's dirty past. Her cop source had confirmed the BMW was still impounded, untouched since the tow. The package was the linchpin. She just needed the world to see it. Layla sat beside her, eyes locked on Sarah's screen. Her ex-post from 2 nights ago had gained traction, hundreds of retweets, angry comments piling up. "This is our shot," Sarah said, hitting publish. The story went live on her outlet site, and she tweeted the link, #JusticeForJacob. Emily Crawford lied. Her dad's protecting her. Look at the evidence. Within minutes, the post exploded. Replies flooded in. "This is disgusting. Free Jacob. Crawford's corrupt." By evening, the spark caught fire. Austinites gathered outside the sheriff's station. Dozens at first, then hundreds. Signs bobbed in the crowd. "Justice for Jacob," and the lies. Layla joined them, her voice hoarse as she chanted, her swollen belly a silent testament to what was at stake. News vans rolled up, cameras flashing. Sarah worked the edges, feeding reporters quotes and the photo. The pressure was mounting, and Crawford's machine couldn't ignore it. Inside the station, Sheriff Blake stormed into the break room, slamming his radio down. "They're out there screaming," he snarled to a deputy. "That damn journalist's stirring it up." His phone buzzed. "Judge Crawford, voice icy. Fix this, Blake. Now." But the impound lot was already crawling with cops, forced to act under public scrutiny. They opened Emily's trunk, and there it was. The black package slid open to reveal a stash of pills. Oxy, street grade. Not Jacob's. Hers. Blake's face paled as the news hit the crowd via a leaked police radio. Cheers erupted, but the fight wasn't over. Crawford called an emergency meeting at his mansion, Emily pacing beside him, her mascara-streaked face a mess. "I didn't mean for this," she whined. "It was just supposed to scare him off." Crawford glared, his empire trembling. "You idiot," he hissed. "You've dragged us all down." Sarah's phone buzzed. A source at the DA's office. They're testing the drugs. Prints are hers, not his. Blake's sweating. He might flip. She grinned at Layla. We've got them. Layla clutched her hand, tears spilling. He's coming home, right? Sarah nodded. We're close. The next morning, the protests swelled to 1,000 strong, spilling onto the courthouse steps. Old victims of Crawford's reign, silenced for years, stepped forward. A gas station clerk spoke of a hushed-up assault. A teacher recounted a rigged case. Their voices, once buried, now roared. The DA, cornered by the uproar, ordered Jacob's release pending review. Blake, facing his own reckoning, started talking, spilling years of Crawford's dirt to save himself. Jacob heard the cell door clang open at noon. You're out, the guard muttered, avoiding his eyes. He stepped into the sunlight, blinking at the crowd. Layla ran to him, her arms wrapping tight around his neck. We did it, she sobbed. He held her, stunned, as cheers washed over them. Sarah pushed through, camera in hand. It's not over, she said. Emily's cracking, and Crawford's next. That night, Emily sat in an interrogation room, her bravado gone. It was my stash, she admitted, voice shaking. I panicked when he saw it. Dad told Blake to pin it on him. The confession aired live, her prints, her drugs, her lie. Crawford's allies scrambled, but the tide had turned. His mansion, once a fortress, was now a target. Reporters camped outside. Jacob stood with Layla on their porch. The city's hum distant. I thought I'd lost you, she whispered. He kissed her forehead. You fought for me. That's everything. The package had been his lifeline, but Layla's fire and Sarah's pen had set him free. Crawford's fall was coming, and Jacob knew. This was just the beginning. The air in Austin felt lighter on August 5th, 2025, as if the city had exhaled a long-held breath. Jacob Harris stood outside the sheriff's station, free after a week that had nearly broken him. The sun warmed his face, but it was Layla's hand in his tight, unwavering, that grounded him. The crowd from days ago had dispersed, but their voices lingered in the headlines, the hashtags, the shifted tide. Emily Crawford's confession had cracked the dam, and now the flood of justice was sweeping through. Inside a stark courtroom that morning, Jacob watched as the DA dropped all charges. New evidence clears Mr. Harris, the prosecutor said, voice clipped, avoiding his gaze. Emily's taped admission, aired live the night before, had left no room for doubt. Her fingerprints on the Oxy stash, her trembling words, I lied. Dad told Blake to frame him. The judge, a rare neutral in Crawford's web, nodded curtly. Case dismissed. Jacob exhaled, Layla squeezing his arm, her eyes shining with relief. Outside, Sarah Wilson waited, her notepad swapped for a triumphant grin. Told you we'd get him, she said, clapping Jacob's shoulder. Her article had ballooned into a series, peeling back decades of Crawford's corruption. Sheriff Blake, cornered by Emily's words and his own crumbling loyalty, had turned state's evidence. Hours of testimony detailing bribes, threats, and rigged cases. The old guard was falling, and Sarah's pen had lit the fuse. Emily faced her own reckoning. In a plea deal, she copped to possession and perjury, 6 months in rehab, a year's probation. Her tears in court were real this time, but Jacob felt no pity. She'd gambled with his life to save her own skin, and the dice had rolled against her. Judge Crawford's fate was steeper. By noon, the state bar suspended him, and a grand jury convened to probe his reign. Old victims, dozens now, lined up to testify, their stories of silenced injustice finally heard. His mansion sat dark, for sale, a symbol of a toppled king. Jacob and Layla drove home in silence, the weight of it all settling. Their duplex felt small but alive, the nursery half-painted, waiting for their daughter. That night, labor hit, fast and fierce. By dawn on August 6th, Hope Harris was born, her tiny cries filling the hospital room. Jacob held her, marveling at her clenched fists, her dark eyes like Layla's. She's our fighter, he whispered. Layla smiled, exhausted but radiant. Just like us. Days later, Jacob stood before a crowd at a community center, Sarah and Layla at his side. He'd been invited to speak, his story now a beacon. "I was just a guy fixing a tire," he said, voice steady. "But they tried to bury me because of who I am. Everyone who marched, who spoke up, you pull me out. That's power. That's justice." Applause rippled, and he felt it. Not just freedom, but purpose. He opened Harris Auto a month later, a modest shop on Austin's east side. The sign read, "Fixing cars, lifting lives, a promise to help anyone in need, no questions asked." Locals trickled in, some with cash, some with stories, all welcome. Tommy, his old boss, joined him, grinning as they tuned engines side by side. "You're a damn hero," Tommy said. Jacob shook his head. "Just a man who got a second chance." Crawford's trial began in September, a media storm. Blake's testimony sealed it. Decades of corruption laid bare. The verdict came fast, guilty on 17 counts, from bribery to obstruction. 10 years, no parole. The gavel fell, and Austin cheered, a wound starting to heal. Emily faded from the spotlight, her name a cautionary tale. The city council launched reforms, spurred by the protests, vowing fairer policing, cleaner courts. One evening, Jacob sat on his porch, Hope asleep in his lap, Layla beside him. The sky burned orange, the hum of crickets asoft him. "I thought I'd lost this," he said, voice thick. Layla leaned into him. "You didn't. We fought together." He nodded, tracing Hope's tiny hand. "And we won." Sarah stopped by, her latest article in hand. "One man's stand changed a city." She handed it to him. "You're the heart of this, Jacob. People see hope in you." He smiled, setting it aside. "It's not just me. It's us, all of us." Weeks turned to months, and Jacob found rhythm in his new life. He mentored kids at the shop, teens like he'd been, hungry for a trade, a chance. Hope grew, her giggles echoing as Layla chased her across the yard. Austin wasn't perfect, scars lingered, but it was shifting. One act on a highway had sparked it. A tire fixed, a lie exposed, a family's resilience. As the sun dipped low, Jacob looked out, peace settling deep. He'd been a pawn, then a fighter, now a father with a legacy. Crawford's empire was dust, Blake's badge stripped, Emily's privilege shattered. Justice hadn't just freed him, it had remade him. And in Hope's wide eyes, he saw the future, a world worth fighting for, one tire, one truth at a time.